A narrow alley tucked between concrete houses and small roadside shops, 5 Filipino boys gathered every afternoon as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. Their slippers were worn thin, their school bags frayed at the edges, and their faces still carried the exhaustion of long days spent helping their families before and after school. To the outside world, they were ordinary, just another group of boys laughing, teasing one another, dreaming quietly. Music was their escape. When the streets grew calm and the noise of motorbikes faded, they began to sing. At first, it was just for fun, soft harmonies echoing off cracked walls, voices blending naturally as if they were meant to be together. One boy tapped a rhythm on an empty water container, another closed his eyes and sang as though the alley were a grand stage. Their voices rose above the clatter of everyday life, carrying emotions far deeper than their young years suggested. Neighbors passed by without stopping. Some smiled briefly, others didn't notice at all. No one knew these boys practiced every day, sharing borrowed earphones to listen to songs they dreamed of performing one day. They had no fancy microphones, no music lessons, only raw talent, determination, and a bond formed through shared struggle. For them, singing wasn't about applause or fame. It was about hope. It was about forgetting empty pockets and uncertain tomorrows. Each harmony carried a silent promise. One day, our voices will be heard. As the final note faded into the evening air, the boys laughed, unaware that this small alley was the beginning of a journey that would soon stun the world. Musical notes sparkles, the massive doors of the audition theater slid open, and suddenly the boys felt smaller than ever. Bright lights flooded their eyes as they stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, their hearts pounding louder than the crowd's murmur. The arena felt like a different universe, rows upon rows of seats, cameras pointed from every angle, and judges seated like giants behind a glowing desk. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. They stood shoulder to shoulder, fingers trembling, yet refusing to let go of one another. This stage was everything they had dreamed of back in that narrow alley. Their simple outfits contrasted sharply with the grandeur around them. Whispers rippled through the audience. They look so young, just kids. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He had seen thousands of acts. Another group of boys didn't usually excite him. So, he asked coolly, "Tell us who you are." One of the boys swallowed hard and spoke about their hometown, their families, and how music brought them together. The story was humble, almost fragile, and the judges smiled politely, but expectations remained low. As the boys took their positions, the music cue began. A soft instrumental filled the hall. One last glance at each other, this was it. The moment they had rehearsed for countless nights without knowing if it would ever come. Then the first voice rose. Clear, strong, unmistakable. The audience leaned forward. Simon's eyebrow lifted slightly. Something was different. The boys who moments ago looked ordinary were transforming right before everyone's eyes. And with that first note, the path from unnoticed dreamers to unforgettable performers had officially begun. The moment the harmony settled into the air, the theater seemed to forget how to breathe. Each boy's voice slipped perfectly into the next, forming a sound so rich and powerful it felt unreal. What began as a gentle melody quickly grew into something massive, layer upon layer of emotion rising from the stage. The boys sang not just with skill, but with stories etched into every note. One voice soared higher than the rest, clear and fearless, sending a visible shiver through the crowd. Gasps rippled across the seats. Hands flew to mouths. The camera cut to Simon Cowell, who leaned forward now, eyes locked on the stage, his earlier indifference completely gone. He wasn't blinking. The chorus arrived like a wave. Their harmonies were tight, polished, and impossibly mature for boys their age. It felt less like an audition and more like a concert. Audience members exchanged stunned looks, some already wiping away tears. No one had expected this, not from boys who had walked in so quietly, carrying nothing but nerves and hope. As the song built toward its climax, the boys moved instinctively, feeding off one another's energy. Years of singing in cramped alleys and crowded rooms had given them something money couldn't buy: chemistry. When they hit the final high note together, it rang out with such force that it echoed long after their mouths closed. Silence. A heartbeat passed, then another, and suddenly, the room exploded. Cheers thundered through the theater as the audience leapt to its feet. The boys stood frozen, eyes wide, unsure if what they were hearing was real. In that moment, time truly stopped, because everyone knew they had just witnessed something extraordinary. The applause refused to die down. It rolled through the theater like thunder, crashing again and again as the boys stood center stage, breathing hard, their hands clenched together. Their faces showed disbelief, eyes shining, chests rising and falling as they tried to understand what had just happened. This was not how they imagined the moment would feel. It was bigger, louder, overwhelming. Simon Cowell slowly stood up. The crowd erupted even louder at the sight. He shook his head, a rare smile breaking through his usually stern expression. When he finally spoke, his voice cut cleanly through the noise. "I'm going to be honest with you," he said, pausing for effect. "When you walked out here, I didn't expect much." The audience reacted with laughter and cheers, but Simon wasn't finished. "That," he continued, pointing toward the boys, "was one of the most surprising auditions I've seen in a very long time." His eyes glistened slightly as he looked at them, not as contestants, but as artists. The other judges jumped in, praising their control, harmony, and emotional power. One judge admitted she felt chills from the first note. Another wiped away tears, saying their voices felt pure and real. The camera caught the boys' parents backstage, crying and hugging each other, barely able to stand. Simon leaned forward again, his tone softer now. "You remind me why shows like this matter," he said. "Talent like yours doesn't come from privilege, it comes from heart." The boys nodded, tears finally spilling over. As the crowd roared once more, it was clear this wasn't just approval, it was recognition. In a single performance, 5 ordinary boys had shattered every expectation and earned the respect of one of the toughest judges in the world. Golden lights poured down from above as the final decision was announced, bathing the stage in a warm glow. The boys froze, gripping each other's hands so tightly their knuckles turned white. For a split second, the world felt unreal, like a dream they were afraid to wake up from. Then the cheers erupted again, louder than ever, and the meaning finally sank in. They had made it. Tears streamed freely now. One boy dropped to his knees, overwhelmed, while the others pulled him into a tight embrace. The audience watched, many crying along with them, witnessing not just a victory, but a transformation. These were no longer just boys from a small Filipino town, they were stars in the making. Backstage, their families rushed toward them, voices shaking with pride. Mothers who had sacrificed meals so their children could attend school now held them as heroes. Fathers who worked long hours in silence wiped their eyes, seeing proof that dreams born in hardship could reach the world's biggest stage. Cameras captured every raw emotion, every trembling smile. Within hours, clips of their performance spread across social media. Millions watched in disbelief as the "ordinary boys" became a global sensation overnight. Comments flooded in from every corner of the world, praising their voices, their unity, and their story. News outlets replayed the audition on repeat, calling it one of the most unforgettable moments in the show's history. Yet, as the night ended, the boys sat together quietly, just like they used to in that narrow alley. Fame was beginning to knock, but at their core, they were still brothers bound by music and hope. Their journey had only just begun, proving to the world that sometimes, the most extraordinary voices come from the most unexpected places.